My name is Thalia Quinn. I'm a Major General in the U.S. Army, with 23 years of service, 4 overseas deployments, and 1 spinal fracture that never quite healed right. But at my sister's graduation, I was the one who didn't settle down, the one who missed Thanksgiving, the one who was probably too important to show up anyway. They didn't see me when I slipped into the back row at Stonemount University that morning. No uniform, no entourage, just a tailored black coat, and the silence I wore like armor. My parents, Charles and Diane, sat in the front row, proud and polished. My sister Juliette stood on the edge of greatness, gold cords gleaming against her navy gown. When her name was called, the applause rose like a tide. And then above it all came the rotors. One beat, then another. A Black Hawk sliced across the sky, descending over the courtyard like judgment. The flags snapped, hats flew. My father stood up, then froze. A soldier stepped down and scanned the crowd. His voice clear and cutting. General Quinn. Washington requests immediate transport. In that moment, every head turned, every secret unraveled. And for the first time in decades, they saw me. Really saw me. But they had no idea what was coming next. Oh. The quad at Stonemount looked just like I remembered from the 1 semester I lasted there. Manicured lawn, sharp-angled shadows. Too many people pretending not to be impressed by wealth. Rows of folding chairs stretched out in neat precision under a pale May sun. I arrived early, took a seat near the back alone and unannounced. Just how they preferred me. No one looked twice. Not the parents fanning themselves with programs, not the staff in stiff robes, not even the usher who walked past me twice without a glance. That was fine. I hadn't come to be seen. I'd come to look my silence in the eye. 3 rows ahead, I saw them. My father in a navy suit, polished to the inch, his arm draped casually across the back of my mother's chair. She wore ivory and pearls, her smile tight and permanent. Between them sat Juliette, posture perfect, honor cords cascading down her gown like medals she didn't have to fight for. They didn't know I was there, not yet. I watched my mother lean toward the woman beside her and say, "Juliette's always been the one with promise. The grounded one." A pause just long enough to slice, unlike her sister still chasing things overseas. The woman murmured something back, polite. My father chuckled. "At least we know which one will be taking care of us." I folded the program in my lap and kept my eyes forward. My name wasn't printed anywhere, not even in the family acknowledgments. I didn't flinch. I'd had years to practice that kind of stillness. A voice crackled through the speakers. They were starting. Faculty processed in. Students lined up. One by one, names were called. Cheering applause, camera shutters like insects in the air. When they reached Juliette, the announcer's tone changed, warm, performative. Juliette Diane Quinn, Master of Public Policy, Global Fellow Honors. Applause surged. My father rose clapping. My mother dabbed an already dry eye. Juliette stepped toward the podium with that practiced glide of someone born to be seen. And then, just as she reached the microphone, the sound came. A low vibration at first. Subtle. Almost felt before it was heard. The announcer paused. Heads turned. Students shifted uneasily in their seats. Then it hit. The unmistakable chop of rotor blades. Gasps rippled. Phones shot skyward. The quad shifted from ceremony to confusion. Above the banners and ivy-covered walls, the Black Hawk descended. Dust spiraled. Flags thrashed. The announcer's voice vanished beneath the thunder. I stood, slow, deliberate, and for one suspended breath, the only sound left was the sharp intake of everyone who'd ever decided I was better kept invisible. The helicopter settled. The side door opened. And that was when the soldier stepped down and saluted. Everything that followed was no longer theirs to control. Fort Caldwell smelled like hot asphalt jet fuel, and decisions made behind locked doors. By the time I stepped off the chopper, the adrenaline had settled into something colder, tighter focus. No cameras, no applause. Just command protocols and clipped radio traffic. Colonel Reed Vaughn was waiting outside Wing C folder, in hand express, Yigan grim but familiar. We'd served together in Kandahar, where silence was currency and trust was earned in fragments. He didn't offer a greeting, just handed me the folder. "You didn't sign off on any of this," he said. I opened it. Authorization logs, procurement trails, budget approvals, all with my digital credentials. All pristine. And all forged. Page after page, my name. My clearance code, my security stamp, but not my signature. Started small, Reed explained. Medical shipments, logistic routing. But by last quarter, it ballooned unmonitored funds diverted through auxiliary accounts. I scanned one page, then another. The amounts made my stomach shift. One line in particular stopped me. Recipient Meridian Axis. Holdings LLC authorization Q level. Quinn TM. Secondary beneficiary. Juliette Quinn. The air dropped 5 degrees. I didn't speak. Reed did. We caught it last week. Compliance flagged the routing path during a separate investigation. When your name popped, I told them to bring it straight to me. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. I know you. You didn't touch this. My fingers tensed around the folder. You sure about the beneficiary link, triple verified? Her name's attached to an account opened in 2018, set up during your 4th deployment. I stared out the window behind him. Soldiers moved in clean lines across the training field, their routines precise, unshaken. Inside me, something cracked. I want a lawyer, I said. Reed nodded. Already contacted one. Alexis Monroe, civilian, ex-JAG. She doesn't lose cases like this. He paused. She also doesn't take them unless she's sure the client's innocent. Then she'll take mine, I said. Reed looked at me for a long second, long enough to see I wasn't rattled. Just calculating. This wasn't a mistake, I added. It's a system. Someone built it. With access to my life. He nodded. And whoever didn't think you'd come back looking. I closed the folder and handed it back. My voice was steady. Then they don't know me at all. He smiled barely. They're about to. In the corner of the office, a clock ticked too loudly. Outside, the wind picked up, and I felt it for the first time, not fury, not grief, but the weight of a name being used like a weapon. Mine. The restaurant sat on the edge of the harbor, wrapped in glass and soft jazz, the kind of place you only book when you're sure someone will take your picture. I wasn't invited, of course, but that never stopped me before. Juliette's graduation dinner was in the private upper hall waiters, in black vests, gold-rimmed plates, a wine list thicker than a mission dossier. When I entered the room, dipped a few degrees. Conversation paused, not quite silenced, but unsettled. My mother saw me first. Her smile flickered reformed like a politician's. Thalia, she said smoothly, like greeting an unexpected but tolerable guest. We didn't think you'd be able to join. My father didn't stand. Just nodded once, an old tick of power, mistaken for politeness. Juliette turned wineglass in hand. Her lips parted, surprised but not alarmed. Not yet. I heard there'd be a toast, I said, slipping off my coat and folding it across my arm. Didn't want to miss it. The maitre d' offered to take my coat. I shook my head. I wasn't staying long. My mother gestured to a seat at the far end. I didn't move toward it. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small black velvet box. No logo, no flourish. I placed it gently in front of Juliette. She blinked. What is it, a gift, I said. From one Quinn to another, she opened it slowly. Inside a sterling bracelet. Simple, elegant, except for the engraving on the underside. 11 digits. Bravo 36, Fireline North. Quinn. My deployment code. From an operation Juliette once pretended to forget when introducing me to her fellowship board. She stared at it, confused. What does that mean? A reminder, I said, that some names leave marks, whether you acknowledge them or not. My father's fork clinked against his plate. Thalia, he said low. This isn't the time for cryptic metaphors. I turned to him, calm as the tide. Actually, it's the perfect time. Juliette's eyes flicked between us. What is going on? I looked directly at her. You remember Meridian Axis? She didn't answer. My mother jumped in. Sweetheart, don't let her ruin your night. Thalia, this isn't the place I cut in still watching my sister, because your name is on something that doesn't belong to you. Her smile faltered. What do you mean? I stepped back from the table. Asked Dad. His hand trembled just slightly as he reached for his glass. Most wouldn't notice. But I'd been trained to. I didn't need to say more. The silence that followed said everything. Alexis Monroe arrived the next morning in a navy trench coat, hair tied back, eyes sharp and unsentimental. She walked into the conference room at Fort Caldwell, like it was her courtroom, and laid her briefcase down with the precision of someone who didn't waste movement or mercy. I've reviewed the files, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. This isn't sloppy embezzlement. It's constructed fraud. With intent. With layers. I sat across from her, the folder open between us. Pages of transactions, internal authorizations, clearance checks, all routed through my digital ID. I didn't sign any of this, I said. I know. And the system knows too, now. Whoever did this used high-grade software to replicate your digital signature. No pressure inconsistencies, no pen drag. It was rendered, not written. She tapped a printed page. This software was banned from all military procurement systems in 2016. I leaned back. What about chain of custody? She opened her laptop, pulled up a fax transmission log. This, she said, is where it gets worse. The screen displayed a single transmission dated March 2017, originating from a residential address in Annapolis. The sender, Charles Quinn. He filed for power of attorney while you were deployed. Alexis continued, claimed you were unreachable, justified financial proxy authority for time-sensitive decisions. My throat tightened. He said I trusted him. She clicked again. An audio file opened. A crackle of static. Then his voice calm and controlled. She's in rotation. Can't be reached. I'll sign on her behalf. She knows. We've done this before. I looked away. He lied, I said quietly. I never gave him that right. Not once. Alexis didn't soften. If we can prove fraud, digital forgery, financial misappropriation, impersonation of a federal officer, it moves from internal to federal. Fast. And Juliette. She may not have known, but her name's listed as secondary beneficiary on 2 of the flagged accounts. If she testifies honestly, she's a witness. If not, she let the sentence trail. I want to press charges, I said, publicly. Alexis held my gaze. If you do this, Thalia, your father's name becomes a headline. So does yours. Are you ready to stand in court and say under oath that your own father forged your identity and exploited your military access for profit? I didn't hesitate. For years, he signed my name like it belonged to him. I reached for the folder, slid it back toward her. Now I'm signing it back. Alexis nodded once. Then let's build the case. The hearing room inside the federal courthouse in District 7 wasn't designed for drama. Beige walls, frosted glass, a hum in the ceiling vents that never quite stopped. It smelled like paper and restraint. Across from me sat my father, Charles Quinn, flanked by 2 attorneys in tailored gray suits. He looked polished, composed, the kind of man who always seemed 1 sentence ahead of everyone else. Juliette sat beside him, hands knotted in her lap, her posture still immaculate, but her eyes restless. She was scanning for an exit that didn't exist. Alexis sat to my left, a single folder in front of her, the one we'd packed with every trace of truth we could gather. When the lead commissioner adjusted his microphone and called the room to order, my pulse didn't spike. I wasn't here for adrenaline. I was here for accuracy. This preliminary session will determine whether formal charges will be pursued regarding allegations of identity fraud, military impersonation, and federal embezzlement, the commissioner said. Major General Quinn, your counsel may proceed. Alexis stood. Between 2016 and 2021, she began Charles Quinn knowingly used his daughter's military clearance to authorize defense contracts routed through shell corporations. The funds totaling $17.4 million were diverted under falsified credentials tied directly to Major General Thalia Quinn. She handed over the first exhibit. Exhibit A, digital metadata proving the signature on these contracts was generated using banned signature software, not handwritten or authorized by the general. The commissioner nodded for her to continue. Alexis pressed play on the audio file. My father's voice filled the room. She's deployed. Doesn't need to be involved. I'm her legal proxy. She trusts me. His jaw tensed. Barely. The commissioner raised an eyebrow. Is that your voice, Mr. Quinn? His attorney intervened before he could answer. We reserve the right to clarify context. We'll get there, Alexis said coolly. Then she submitted the final page. This account, she said, lists a secondary beneficiary. Juliette Quinn. Juliette recoiled. What? Her voice cracked. She turned toward my father, eyes wide. You put me on that, she whispered. Without telling me. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. Alexis spoke again. Whether she was aware or not, Mr. Quinn used his daughter's name as shield and conduit. That qualifies her as a witness, and possibly more. The commissioner looked to me. General Quinn, would you like to make a statement? I stood. I served abroad while this happened. I returned each time to silence. My family never asked what I saw, only what I could give. They used my absence. And then they used my name. My voice didn't tremble. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't here to protect anyone. I was here to correct the record. The verdict came down 1 week later. Charles Quinn, my father, was formally indicted on 4 federal charges: identity theft impersonation of a classified military official, unlawful access of secure systems, and embezzlement of government-linked funds. His personal assets diversified across foundations, trusts, and quiet partnerships were frozen. Every board position he held, from Ivy League advisory councils to defense-aligned nonprofits, severed ties within 48 hours. The man who once told me I was an ungrateful disappointment was now required under oath to explain why he thought my name belonged to him, and mine. It never made the headlines. By design, Alexis honored my request: no press conferences, no interviews, no morning shows dissecting trauma like entertainment. I didn't want my face on the news. I wanted my identity back quietly, fully, and without their narrative attached. 3 days later, I stood beneath the rotunda of the Hall of Honor at the Pentagon. Dress blues, medals aligned, the Distinguished Service Medal pinned just above my heart. Rows of officers stood in solemn formation, a handful of colleagues from units I hadn't seen in years, quietly nodding as I stepped to the podium. I didn't speak about the investigation, not about what it cost, not about the hearings, the betrayal, or the accounts that bore my name, but never my permission. I said only this: I'm not the legacy of a man who used my silence for personal gain. I'm the one who endured, the one who returned without applause, without welcome, and stood still when no one was watching. I paused, scanning the faces before me. And today, I write my name back, letter by letter, onto the record they tried to erase. In the front row, Juliette sat beside Colonel Vaughn. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, but her eyes didn't leave mine, and for the first time I didn't feel invisible. I felt present, whole. That night, I returned to my office. I placed the medal beside a worn photo, my old unit from Operation Iron Echo, the ones who never got ceremonies, the ones whose names had been left behind in supply reports and encrypted letters. I lit a single desk lamp. No music, no voice, just quiet. I opened a folder labeled simply Quinn TM. Inside were 2 things: a copy of my original deployment oath, and a signature I never gave but reclaimed. The storm passed, but clarity didn't walk in with it. It lingered at the threshold, cautious watching to see what I would do once the noise was gone. What remained was silence, not empty, but earned. A silence that didn't ask to be filled. A week after the ceremony, Juliette showed up at my office. No assistant, no press, just her standing in the doorway, holding a manila envelope like it weighed more than it should have. I didn't offer her a chair. "I won't take much of your time," she said, eyes not quite meeting mine. "But I needed to hand this to you, not email, not mail, in person." She stepped forward, placed the envelope gently on the desk, and then stepped back like she'd crossed into unfamiliar terrain. "I've withdrawn from the foundation, returned every stipend, grant, and disbursement that bore my name, even the ones I didn't touch directly. It's all there: receipts, letters, signed withdrawal affidavits." I didn't reach for it. Not yet. "He told me it was honorary," she continued. "Said it was just part of the legacy, that you approved it informally, that you didn't care about details." She exhaled, steadying herself. I think I wanted to believe that, because if I didn't ask questions, I didn't have to know how deep it went. Her voice broke, not for sympathy, but under the weight of her own delayed reckoning. "I didn't come to ask forgiveness. That would be convenient. I came to say I never wanted to take anything that belonged to you. But I see now that silence takes 2. She didn't cry. She didn't make excuses. "I believe you," I said. Her shoulders dropped just slightly, like a tension had been living there for years. She turned to go, then hesitated at the door. "How long have you known?" I waited a moment before answering. "Long enough to give you time to come clean, and short enough to still care what you did with that chance." She nodded once and left. After the door clicked shut, I opened the envelope. Inside, notarized documents, reversed transfers, official resignations, and 1 handwritten note. "I know this doesn't erase anything, but maybe it closes the door we never had the courage to open. J." I folded the note and placed it into the cedar box beside my Distinguished Service Medal and a faded photo of my team in Echo unit names no one in my family ever bothered to ask about. Juliette moved to Denver. My father's trial unfolded quietly. No press, no denials, just process. His name disappeared from plaques boards and alumni pages, as if it had never been there to begin with. Alexis sent a bottle of 18-year bourbon and a note that read, "Some names are taken, others are reclaimed. You didn't just reclaim yours, you rewrote it." I never gave another speech, but some nights I walk the lower corridor of Fort Caldwell alone. Past restricted zones, past sealed doors, my ID still grants access to the archive wing. I step inside surrounded by years of operations, sealed boxes, forgotten names. And I remember they forged mine. They used it. They passed it around like it was theirs to own. But a name isn't owned by signatures. It's owned by presence. And I'm still here, letter by letter, quiet, unshaken, mine.